Hey everybody, Mo here, and in this video I'm bringing the long-awaited, the most asked for deck guide, and that's going to be on Heimerdinger. So I hope you guys enjoy the deck guide. Make sure to follow me on Twitch, I stream on there almost every single day. Make sure to sub here on YouTube because I post videos weekly, and join the Discord if you guys want coaching or if you just have any questions you want to ask me. So let's go ahead and get right into the deck guide. So Heimerdinger is probably the most fun control deck I've played that's like a hard control deck, and that's because when you're playing this deck, your opponent's not playing the game. You have a lot of tools to stop them from playing any creatures, and then if they're playing control, you have a lot of tools to just overwhelm them with units to where they just can't wait until turn 15 where they get to do their combo or whatever it is they're trying to do. So the main win condition of this deck is to just control the board with your early game spells like Thermogen, Mystic Shot, Get Excited, and then eventually just play a Heimerdinger, get a bunch of spells, get a bunch of free turrets, get a bunch of free Vi triggers, play this big ass Vi with Tough, and just beat your opponent down. And then so I'll go over the purpose of each card right now. So this is my version of the deck, and one thing you'll notice that might be different between other people's decks is I like to have very, very consistent decks, which means almost every deck I play will have as many 3-ofs as possible. As you can see here, all 3-ofs except for 2 cards here. So what I'm going to do real quick is just go over each card and tell you why they're in the deck for each region. So you play Thermogen because it's a removal spell. You can play it on turn 2 against any 2/3s, mainly being War Chefs and Elise. And you can play it on later turns against like Cithrias and Garens because it can deal all the way up to 13 damage if you needed to. I played 3 Claw of the Dragons. The reason I played 3 instead of 2 is because I want to maximize the odds of you getting them early. This deck has really, really bad early game. So Claws of the Dragon could be a cheeky way to get good early game, and sometimes you just get nut draws where on turn 2 you end up putting in 3 Claws of the Dragon somehow. That's always nice to have in your deck. Most of the time it's just to have 1 to 2 free 3/2s on turns 3 or 4, just get good blockers in. Mystic Shot because it's Mystic Shot to remove stuff. Flash of Brilliance. The only reason this card is in this deck is because it combos with Heimerdinger. You never play this card unless you have Heimerdinger on the field or unless you just absolutely have to. Get Excited because Get Excited, it kills things. Shadow Assassin because it's an elusive unit that can block other elusive units, and it also refills your hand, which helps you draw into your Vi, helps you draw into your Heimerdinger, helps shape your hand to be more useful. And it's just a decent blocker early. Solitary Monk, so this actually applies pressure against control decks very, very well, especially when you combine it with things like Twin Discipline's way to keep it alive. It's something that lets you play on turn 3. So if you notice, you're actually not playing anything on turns 1 and 2 ever in this deck, and we'll talk about that later on. So you don't play anything on turn 1 and 2, and then you just slam down a Solitary Monk on turn 3, and a lot of control decks can't deal with this super easily, or they really can't deal with 2 of them super easily, and a 4 power unit on turn 3 that's elusive is a really fast clock and can really apply pressure if people don't answer this card. Twin Disciplines because it's 3 mana burst spells. It keeps your Heimerdinger alive, keeps your Monk alive. Deep Meditation because this card refills your hand because it's definitely not balanced. Deny because you're annoying and you're playing Ionia, so you have to play Deny. Spirit's Refuge for those pesky burn matchups. After you've bought in your Bible and you started praying, maybe you'll draw one of these on a 10-5 Vi. Will of Ionia because Unyielding Spirit's a not balanced card. Heimerdinger because the deck's named after it, and then Vi because the deck's named after it. So, how do you play this deck? The main purpose is, as you notice, a lot of the spells here are actually 3 cost. A majority of our deck, about, a quarter of our deck is 3 cost 3 cost cards. And that's because Heimerdinger has a spell, a turret, for each costing spell all the way up to 8. And the best one being the 3 cost spell, because it makes a 3/1 elusive unit, and elusive is obviously really, really good. Elusive is the #1 counter to sea monsters. It's really, really good against bannerman decks. So this deck tries to maximize the number of 3 costing spells, like Flash of Brilliance. So the ideal curve with this deck is you go, obviously you don't play anything turn 1, turn 2. That way you can get 3 spell mana, and you just hold on to that 3 spell mana all the way up until turn 5. So on turn 3, you can play your Solitary Monk, and if it dies, yeah, it's okay, it dies. On turn 4, you can either play another Solitary Monk, or if you're playing against a control deck, you can play something like a Deep Meditation. to reshape your hand. The really, really biggest main goal, and yes, I did say the word biggest, and yes, I am dating an English major. The biggest main goal here is just to keep 3 spell mana at all times until you get to play this Heimerdinger. The reason being, the nut draw is you play Heimerdinger on turn 5, and then you have 2 to 3 Flash of Brilliance. So before your opponent can even respond to anything, before, if they're trying to kill your Heimerdinger, before that kill spell goes through, you get 2 to 3 3/1 elusive units that they literally cannot respond to. And then on top of that, ideally, you also have a Twin Disciplines on turn 5 to keep your Heimerdinger alive. So that adds another, extra 3/1 elusive because Twin Disciplines cost 3 mana and it's burst speed. The main goal is to keep Heimerdinger alive and maximize the free turret value. Because if you do that efficiently, your Vi will level up in literally no time. Just on turn 5, if you play, I already went over this, if you play Heimerdinger and then some 3 mana spells, and then you play the turrets, that can level up your Vi in 1 to 2 turns. Which is, of course she has to hit, but it can get her to 10 power in 1 to 2 turns, which is absolutely insane. So that's the basics of what each card purpose has to do with the deck. The main goal of the deck is, again, make sure you want to control the board state, get a bunch of spells with Heimerdinger. You really, really don't want to play Heimerdinger naked, which means you don't want to play Heimerdinger if you don't feel like you can save your Heimerdinger. For instance, if you're playing against Demacia and you think they have a fight card or a single combat, and they're holding open 2 mana a lot and it's really readable, probably don't play Heimerdinger on turn 5. Maybe wait until turn 6 where you can play Heimerdinger and then you can still play your Flash of Brilliance, and you have that extra mana now for the counterspell if they do try and go for the single combat. So that way you get a bonus turn and your Heimerdinger stays alive for an extra turn to get maximum value out of it. That's it for the deck overview. Now I'm going to talk about each matchup and quickly tell you what to do in each matchup. So in the Burn Aggro matchup, there's really not much you can do to win this one. That's the one sad part about this deck, is if you are playing against a bunch of Burn Aggro, maybe if you're in lower elo and you play against a bunch of Burn that way, or maybe you're just having a bad day and you're just playing against a bunch of Burn decks, I probably would not recommend playing this deck. But if you are a masochist and you love playing against awful matchups, the way you beat Burn in this matchup is just play a bunch of early game removal spells, play your Thermogens, play your Mystic Shots, hopefully get a couple Claws of the Dragons early to block, and then draw a Spirit's Refuge, and then put that on, if you make it to turn 5, or turn 6, play a Vi, maybe you can Spirit's Refuge your Vi and gain 10 health back, maybe you can just Spirit's Refuge a Solitary Monk and get 4 health back that way, but for the most part, there's not much you can do if the Burn Aggro gets a really good draw. Just try and remove their units early, and that's about it. The next matchup we're going to be talking about is Lux Karma. So this matchup's actually not that bad for you. So you get to play basically like you're against a control deck, except it plays a few creatures here. They do play 3 Badger Bears, they do play 3 Grizzled Rangers. Aside from those creatures though, they don't ever actually apply much pressure on you. So, and they don't play any like hard kill spells. The only kill spells they have are single combats and Will of Ionias. So if you can find a way to remove their creatures from the board to where they can't use single combat on your Heimerdinger, or if you have a way to give your Heimerdinger like a barrier or something, then it's really, really hard for them to actually permanently deal with the Heimerdinger, which makes it really easy to just slam a Heimerdinger on turn 6 when you do have the deny mana, or when you do have the barrier mana for Spirit's Refuge, and then just unload all your turrets there and then just hit them with a bunch of elusive units, because they only play 1 elusive unit typically, which is the Shadow Assassin. So if they don't have a Shadow Assassin in play, you will be able to overwhelm them with 3/1 elusives fairly quickly and fairly easily. Only thing there is make sure you watch out for the Unyielding Spirit that they do play. Try and keep Will of Ionia for that, and then just attempt to not die by killing their stuff. Karina Control, Heimer Control, and Ezreal Karma are all going to be about the same. All of your control matchups, you're basically just going to wait to play your Heimerdinger until you can keep them alive. Like I said, typically this happens on turn 6, because that gives you the option to either have barrier or deny on top of all of your Flash of Brilliance. So try not to just slam down Heimerdinger if he's can be killed very easily. Try and make sure you can keep him alive, and that's basically the game plan for most of your control decks. Some of them are going to be a little different. For instance, Karina Control, they do play the spiders, So make sure and try and you don't play Static Shock, so be wary of that. Make sure to try and keep open the Thermogen or get a couple Claws of the Dragons to block early. If they do, try and open up with a super aggressive turn 2 Elise, turn 3 Skitterer, turn 4 Rude Awakening. You want to try and make sure you have enough blockers to not die to that. In the mirror match, there's not really too much you can do. Try and make sure you have ways to kill their Heimerdinger. And I think this matchup really just comes down to whose Vi can live longer, because Vi is really, really hard to actually kill. It takes multiple spells because of the toughness she has and because of the tough keyword she has. So ideally you just want to get a big Vi, and your Vi wants to be better than their Vi in the mirror match. And in Karma Ezreal, in this matchup you kind of just want to again get a whole bunch of units, play your Heimerdinger on maybe turn 6 unless you just have like the nuts of triple flash brilliance, and then just try and run them over with 3-1 elusive units. Karma Ezreal only plays 1 elusive unit as well in the Shadow Assassin. This is another matchup where you're going to want Solitary Monk as well in all of your control matchups, because Solitary Monk is a very good threat on turn 3 that can, put a clock on your opponent. Right there is a 5-turn clock all by itself. So that's pretty decent card. Against Bannerman mid-range, this matchup's fairly easy for you. You're just going to want to play, a unit on turn 3, and then just have all your removal spells. You can Thermogen a War Chef on turn 2 if you feel like you need to. Maybe they opened up with a 1-mana 2-1, and then a War Chef, and then you're afraid you won't have an answer to their 4-4, or you won't have an answer to any of their other creatures the next turn. You can go ahead and feel like Thermogening, go ahead and Thermogen. But ideally, you just want to play units, keep units alive. They don't have a hard way to kill your Heimerdinger either, except for single combat. So just try and keep Will of Ionia, deny, barrier for your Heimerdinger on that. And then you can just kill them with elusives. This matchup is pretty easy since they play 0 elusives, and their only way to deal with elusives is typically just with challenger units. Scouts is the same thing. You just want to do the same game plan as Bannerman, except they're a little bit more aggressive. So try Mulligan for more cheaper units, maybe for an extra couple claws, maybe Mystic Shot a couple things early, get excited there. Misfortune on turn 3. Just try to get a little bit more early game versus Scouts since they're a little bit more aggressive. Sea Monsters is a very, very good matchup. You're going to want to just look for elusive units. Sea Monsters can't beat elusives in any way, shape, or form. So this is a really, really good matchup. You just play Heimerdinger on turn 3. I'm sorry, on turn 5. And if they're not holding open Grasp mana, they also don't have a real way to kill your Heimerdinger at fast speed. So you can kind of just have a heyday with that as well. So that's the quick matchup guide for all of the S tier decks at the moment. I'm not going to be covering every single deck that anyone's ever made on Legend of Runeterra. I usually just cover the S tier decks as well. I will be covering only S tier decks in my Mulligan guide, which if you join the Discord, which link will be in the description of this YouTube video, there will be a full-on Mulligan guide in my Discord channel. Just join the Discord and then go to deck guides, and it'll pop up right there for you in a nice little text document. So if you have any questions about a specific deck, feel free to go follow me on Twitch and message me on there. Or if you do join the Discord, I'm always on Discord. You can leave a comment in the comment below here as well, and I will respond there. I respond a lot faster on Discord since I have that on my phone, and I'm on Discord basically anytime my computer's open. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you want the Mulligan guide, again, make sure to join my Discord. Make sure to follow me on Twitch, subscribe here so you guys don't miss anything. And I'll see you guys in the next video.